The Pack of One. Chapter 1. The end of the tomato sauce days. Patch was not a beautiful cat. He had one ear that was half missing and fur that looked like a dirty puzzle, some black, some white, and some orange. But Patch did not care about being beautiful. He cared about being full and being warm. For 5 years he was the king of the alley behind Luigi's, an old Italian restaurant in the city. This alley was his world. It smelled of garlic, basil, and warm tomato sauce. Every night at 10 p.m. the heavy metal door opened. A warm yellow light spilled out onto the dark stones. Then an old man named Mr. Rossi appeared. "Ciao, Piccolo," Mr. Rossi would say softly. He always brought a paper plate with him. On the plate there was usually chicken, a little bit of pasta, or sometimes the fat from a good piece of beef. Patch would purr. It was a loud sound, like a small engine. He rubbed his head against Mr. Rossi's legs. The old man scratched Patch behind his good ear. "You are a good boy," the man whispered. "You are my little guard." Life was simple. Life was good. Patch had a cardboard box near the dryer vent where hot air blew out all night. He was safe there. But then the routine broke. One Tuesday, the metal door did not open. The yellow light did not appear. Patch waited. He sat by the door until the sun came up and the garbage trucks made loud noises on the main street. He thought, maybe he is sick. He will come tomorrow. But Mr. Rossi did not come tomorrow. He did not come the day after either. Instead, strangers came. 2 weeks later, men in expensive grey suits walked into the alley. They did not smell like tomato sauce. They smelled like soap and cold air. They pointed at the building. They pointed at Pat's box. "Clear it all out," one man said. He had a loud voice. "We need to start the renovation on Monday. This place is going to be a luxury clothing store. We cannot have trash here." Patch did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was hard and unfriendly. He hid behind a large garbage bin. On Monday, the world ended. Huge yellow machines arrived. They were louder than thunder. Men with heavy boots and yellow hats started to throw things into a big metal container. They took the old pots. They took the broken chairs. Then a man saw Patch's cardboard box. He kicked it. "Get out of here, cat!" he shouted. Patch ran. He scrambled up the brick wall, his heart beating very fast. He watched from the roof as they put up a tall, shiny metal gate across the entrance of his alley. They locked it. The door to the restaurant was gone. The smell of basil was gone. His warm air vent was behind the gate. Patch stood on the sidewalk outside the fence. He was hungry. He was cold. And for the first time in 5 years, he was completely alone. Chapter 2. The Concrete River. The city was different when you were not in your own territory. Behind the restaurant, Patch knew every shadow and every stone. Out here, on the open sidewalk, the world was too big and too loud. It began to rain. It was a cold November rain that soaked through Patch's fur in seconds. He needed to find a new dry place. He remembered a park. It was 4 blocks away. He had gone there once when he was a kitten. There were trees and a small wooden shed where the gardeners kept their tools. It was far, but he had no other choice. Patch looked at the street in front of him. It was not really a street. It was a river of metal and light. Cars and buses moved very fast. Their tires made a hissing sound on the wet road. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He stepped off the sidewalk. His paw touched the wet black asphalt. Honk! A taxi drove by, very close to his nose. The wind from the car pushed Patch back. He shivered. He was afraid, but his stomach hurt from hunger. He had to move. He waited. He watched the lights. Red light. The cars stopped. This was his chance. Patch lowered his body to the ground and ran. He moved like a shadow. He was halfway across the street when the light changed to green. The engines roared. The cars started to move. Patch froze. To his left, a bus was coming. To his right, A blue van. He was stuck in the middle, on the painted white line. The noise was terrible. It hurt his ears. He pressed his stomach flat against the wet ground and closed his eyes. The bus went past him. The wheels were taller than a person. The ground shook. Dirty water splashed over him. He wanted to jump up and run, but his instincts told him stay. If you move, you die. For 10 seconds he was a small, wet statue in the middle of the chaos. Finally, the cars stopped again. Patch did not wait. He shot forward like a bullet. He reached the sidewalk on the other side and jumped onto a low wall. He breathed heavily. His heart felt like a bird trying to escape his chest. He looked back at the street. He had crossed the first block, but he was not safe yet. He was now in front of a tall glass building. People were walking fast, holding umbrellas. They did not look down. A heavy black boot almost stepped on his tail. Patch hissed and jumped away. "Shoo! Go away, you dirty thing!" a woman shouted. She swung her purse at him. Patch ran again. He turned the corner into a narrower street. This was the second block. It was darker here. There were fewer cars, which was good, but there was a strange smell. It smelled like wet dog and old garbage. Patch stopped. The fur on his back stood up. He was not the only animal looking for shelter tonight. From the shadows of a basement entrance, a pair of yellow eyes appeared. Then a low growl filled the air. It was not a dog. It was another cat, a large scarred tomcat with only half a tail. This was his street, and he did not want visitors. Patch was tired. He was smaller than this enemy, but Patch had survived the death of his owner and the river of cars. He showed his teeth and made a low, dangerous sound in his throat. He was a pack of one, and he was not going to turn back now. Chapter 3. Claws and Thunder. The large tomcat did not wait for an invitation. With a loud scream, he jumped. Patch threw himself to the right. He felt the sharp wind of the other cat's claws near his face. He rolled on the wet pavement and stood up quickly. The big cat was heavy, but he was slow. Patch was small, but he was fast. He had lived in an alley, but he had never fought a war like this. At Luigi's, the only fights were over the best piece of chicken. This was a fight for life. The enemy turned around. His yellow eyes were wide and angry. He hissed, showing long yellow teeth. Patch puffed up his tail to look bigger. He made a low growl, a rumble deep in his chest. Go back, Patch thought. I just want to pass. But the alley cat did not care. He lunged again. This time his claws caught Patch's shoulder. A sharp pain stung Patch's skin. Patch cried out. He swiped his own claws across the big cat's nose. The big cat blinked and stepped back, surprised. This was Patch's chance. He did not stay to win the fight. He turned and ran. He ran faster than he had ever run before. His paws slipped on the wet stones, but he kept his balance. He heard the heavy paws of the enemy behind him. Thump, thump, thump. They were close. Patch saw a tall wooden fence ahead. It was too high to jump. He panicked. He looked left. He looked right. To the left, there was a stack of old wooden pallets. Patch scrambled up the wood. Splinters scratched his stomach, but he did not stop. He reached the top of the fence and balanced on the thin edge. He looked down. The big tomcat was at the bottom, jumping and scratching at the wood. He could not reach. He yowled in anger. Patch was safe from the teeth, but he was not safe from the night. He jumped down onto the other side. He was now on the third block. The rain changed. It was no longer a steady shower. It became a storm. The wind howled through the streets like a ghost. Water poured from the sky in heavy sheets. It was hard to see. It was hard to breathe. Patch walked with his head down. His shoulder hurt where the cat had scratched him. He was limping slightly. He wanted to lie down. He wanted to close his eyes and dream of the dryer vent and the smell of tomato sauce. But the water on the street was rising. It covered his paws. It was freezing cold. "If I stop now," he told himself, "I will never wake up." He passed tall buildings with dark windows. There were no people here. This was the business district. At night, it was a ghost town. There were no trash cans with food. There were no open doors. There was only concrete, glass, and the cold rain. Suddenly, the sky turned white. Crack! Thunder shook the ground. Patch flattened his ears against his head. He hated loud noises. The thunder sounded like the yellow machines that destroyed his home, but 100 times louder. He ran to a doorway to hide from the wind. He curled into a tight ball. He shivered violently. His fur was soaked, and the cold went deep into his bones. He thought about Mr. Rossi. He remembered the old man's warm hand. He remembered the soft voice saying, "You are a good boy." A single tear mixed with the rain on Patch's face. That world was gone. The box was gone. The food was gone. He was just a small, wet animal in a giant, uncaring city. But then Patch lifted his head. He sniffed the air. Under the smell of rain and exhaust fumes, there was something else. It was faint, but it was there. It smelled like wet earth. It smelled like pine needles and dead leaves. The park. It was close. He stood up. His legs were stiff and painful. He shook the water from his coat, though it did not help much. He looked into the dark storm. He had survived the river of cars. He had survived the angry tomcat. He could survive the rain. Patch stepped back out into the storm. He focused on that smell. It was the smell of hope. He began to walk again, one paw after the other, moving toward the green island in the sea of grey stone. Chapter 4. The Kingdom of Trees. The fourth block was the hardest. Patch was exhausted. He had no energy left. He walked slowly, dragging his tail on the ground, but the smell of earth got stronger. Finally, he saw it. Across the streetlights illuminated a black iron gate. Behind the gate, there were no buildings. There were large dark shapes reaching up to the sky. Trees. Patch crossed the final street. There were no cars now. The city was asleep. He reached the gate. It was locked, but the bars were wide apart. He squeezed his head through, then his shoulders, and finally his hips. He was inside. The ground under his paws changed. It was no longer hard concrete. It was soft, wet grass. It felt strange, but it felt good. The noise of the city seemed to fade away here. The trees blocked the wind and the rain. It was quieter. It was calmer. Patch walked deeper into the park. He remembered the wooden shed from when he was a kitten. He hoped it was still there. He walked past a playground with empty swings moving in the wind. He walked past a pond where ducks were sleeping with their heads under their wings. Then he saw it. It was a small wooden building near a flower garden. It looked old. The paint was peeling off. Patch circled the building. The door was closed tight. He scratched at the wood, but it did not open. He felt a wave of despair. Was he going to freeze here, just outside of safety? He walked around to the back. There, near the ground, a piece of wood was broken. It was a small hole, ragged and dark. Patch sniffed it. It smelled of dry dust and oil. No animals were inside. He pushed his head into the hole. It was tight, but he pushed hard with his back legs. With a final grunt, he popped through. Inside, it was dry. It was wonderful. The sound of the rain was just a gentle drumming on the roof. The floor was wooden. In the corner, there was a pile of old canvas sacks used for gardening. Patch walked over to them. They were not as warm as his dryer vent, but they were dry and soft. He circled 3 times to make a bed. Then he collapsed. He licked his sore shoulder for a few minutes until the pain stopped burning. Then he put his head on his paws. He closed his eyes. The storm raged outside, but Patch was safe. He fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. He woke up to sunlight. A beam of bright, warm light came through the hole in the wall. Dust motes danced in the air. Patch stretched. His body was stiff, and his stomach roared with hunger. But he was alive. He heard a noise outside. Heavy footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch on the gravel path. Patch froze. He crept to the hole and looked out with one eye. A woman was standing there. She wore green coveralls and heavy boots. She was holding a rake. She was looking at the flower bed. She was not Mr. Rossi. She did not have a white apron, but she had a kind face. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a sandwich. She took a bite, then she stopped. She looked at the shed. She looked right at the hole where Patch was hiding. Patch held his breath. The woman smiled. She tore off a piece of turkey from her sandwich. She tossed it onto the grass, just a few feet from the shed. "I know you're in there, little one," she said softly. Her voice was not Italian. It was rougher but gentle. "It was a hard night. You must be hungry." She did not try to grab him. She did not yell. She simply picked up her rake and started to work on the leaves, humming a quiet tune. Patch stared at the turkey. It was pink and fresh. His nose twitched. Slowly, carefully, Patch squeezed out of the hole. He kept his belly low to the ground. He watched the woman. She did not look at him. She let him be. He crept forward and ate the turkey in one bite. It was delicious. He looked at the woman again. She was still working, but she tossed another piece of meat behind her without turning around. Patch ate that too. Then he sat down. The sun was warming his fur. The dampness of the night was evaporating. He began to groom himself, smoothing down his messy black, white, and orange fur. He looked around his new territory. There were trees to climb. There were mice in the tall grass. There was a dry shed. And there was a human who understood the rules of respect. He missed the alley. He missed the smell of basil. A part of him would always miss Mr. Rossi, but that life was over. The city changed, and he had to change with it. Patch was no longer the cat of the Italian restaurant. He was the cat of the park. He was a survivor. He had crossed the concrete river and fought the monsters of the night. He looked at the woman one last time, let out a short, quiet meow to say thank you, and walked into the tall grass, his tail held high. He was home. The end. And that brings us to the end of Patch's journey. It was a scary trip through the city, but I am so happy he finally found a new safe haven with the kind gardener. It really shows how resilience can help us survive even when our whole world changes. Key vocabulary. Now, let's look closer at the language used in this story. I have selected some challenging words and phrases to help you understand the text better. Renovation. We need to start the renovation on Monday. To renovate means to repair, rebuild, or improve a building so that it is in good condition again. In the story, they wanted to change the old restaurant into a new luxury store. You can also renovate a house or a room, like a kitchen renovation. Scramble. He scrambled up the brick wall, his heart beating very fast. To scramble means to move or climb very quickly, usually using your hands and feet, often because you are in a hurry or in danger. You might scramble up a hill during a hike, or scramble to find your keys when you are late for work. Instinct. His instincts told him, stay. If you move, you die. An instinct is a natural feeling that makes you act without thinking. Animals have strong instincts to help them survive, like running from danger. Humans have instincts too, like when you automatically catch a falling cup. Chaos. For 10 seconds, he was a small, wet statue in the middle of the chaos. Chaos describes a situation of complete confusion and disorder where nothing is organized. The busy street with loud cars and rain was pure chaos for a small cat. You might also say a messy room or a busy office is in chaos. Exhausted. The fourth block was the hardest. Patch was exhausted. To be exhausted means to be extremely tired, much more than just sleepy. It means you have no energy left at all. After a long run or a very hard day at work, you would feel exhausted. Illuminate. Across the streetlights illuminated a black iron gate. To illuminate means to light something up or make it bright. The streetlights made the gate visible in the dark. We can also use it metaphorically, like when a teacher illuminates a difficult topic by explaining it clearly. Despair. He felt a wave of despair. Was he going to freeze here? Despair is the complete loss or absence of hope. It is a very strong, sad feeling. Patch felt despair when he thought he could not get into the shed. Evaporating. The dampness of the night was evaporating. To evaporate means to turn from liquid into vapor or gas, usually because of heat. The sun was drying the water on the ground. We also use this to say a feeling is disappearing, like when your anger evaporates after you calm down. Groom. He began to groom himself, smoothing down his messy fur. To groom means to clean or brush the fur or skin of an animal. Cats spend a lot of time grooming. For humans, being well groomed means looking neat and tidy. Survivor. He was a survivor. He had crossed the concrete river. A survivor is a person or animal that continues to live, especially in spite of being close to death or great danger. Patch survived the traffic and the storm, so he is a survivor. Key phrases. Now, let's look at some of the interesting phrases from the story. Pack of one. He was a pack of one, and he was not going to turn back now. Usually, animals like wolves or dogs live in a group called a pack to help each other. Calling Patch a pack of one means he is alone and must rely only on himself to be strong and survive. Spilled out. A warm yellow light spilled out onto the dark stones. To spill usually means to accidentally let liquid fall, like spilling water. Here it is used artistically to describe light flowing out of the door like a liquid covering the ground. River of metal. It was not really a street, it was a river of metal and light. This is a metaphor. The cars were moving so fast and there were so many of them that they looked like a flowing river made of metal machines. It emphasizes that the street was dangerous and hard to cross. Soaked through. It was a cold November rain that soaked through Patch's fur in seconds. To be soaked through means to be completely wet, all the way to your skin. If you walk in the rain without an umbrella, your clothes will be soaked through. Shot forward. Patch did not wait. He shot forward like a bullet. To shoot forward means to move ahead extremely fast and suddenly. Patch did not start slowly. He ran at full speed immediately to cross the street. Ghost town. At night, it was a ghost town. A ghost town is a place that has no people in it. It feels empty and abandoned. The business district was busy in the day but empty like a ghost town at night. Dead leaves. It smelled like pine needles and dead leaves. This refers to the dry brown leaves that have fallen from trees, usually in autumn. It is a specific smell of nature and the forest. Dragging his tail. He walked slowly, dragging his tail on the ground. When a cat is happy or confident, its tail is usually up. Dragging a tail on the ground shows that the animal is very tired, sad or defeated. It paints a picture of how weak Patch felt. Held his breath. Patch held his breath. The woman smiled. To hold your breath means to stop breathing for a moment, usually because you are scared, nervous, or waiting for something important to happen. Rules of respect. And there was a human who understood the rules of respect. This means understanding boundaries and how to treat others politely. The woman did not try to grab the cat. She respected his space. This phrase suggests an unspoken agreement between them. Comprehension quiz. Now that we have reviewed the vocabulary, I want to test how well you understood the story. I am going to ask you 3 questions. Here is the first question. Why did Patch have to leave his home behind the Italian restaurant? Here is the second question. What danger did Patch face when he entered the second block of the city? And the third question. Who finally gave Patch food at the end of the story? Please pause the video right now. Think about your answers and type them in the comments section below. Do not worry if you make a mistake. It is all part of learning. I will wait for you. Did you write your answers? Great. Let's see if you were correct. The answer to the first question is that the owner, Mr. Rossi, died and the building was sold for renovation. The new owners locked the alley so Patch could not stay. The answer to the second question is that Patch met a large, angry tomcat who wanted to fight him for the territory. Patch had to run away to escape. The answer to the third question is the woman in the park, likely a gardener. She saw Patch hiding in the shed and gave him some turkey from her sandwich. I hope you enjoyed this story about Patch and his brave journey. If you found this video helpful for your English listening and reading practice, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. See you in the next video.